In this video, we're going to be breaking down a couple of shots taken directly from the 2019 Arri show reels, which have just been recently uploaded to the official Arri YouTube channel. The aspects of cinematography that we'll be touching on include lighting and how what we see is achieved, the angle of the lights and why it matters for story purposes and something that you might want to think about for your own films, color and color palettes, the composition of a shot, and finally in the last image I'll briefly touch on texture. So let's start. It's a very simple shot. It utilizes some very basic cinematography techniques, but some of the principles are worth talking about. See, a novice eye would take a look at this and say that the cinematographer or the DP is just sort of, pump some light in from the right of frame here. Some might even say that they haven't even done that, and they've just used natural daylight here to sort of get this flood of light coming in from here. I'll show you on why that's not the case. So let's break it down. So let's break it down by starting with the obvious, which is this light here coming in from the right hand side of the frame. It's not natural daylight, as a novice eye would say. The reason I know this is because actually you can see the color of the daylight, and then you can see the color of the light which is pumped in. So lights are manufactured, daylight lights are manufactured to be color accurate, right? So you know what it is, what color it is. And so let's just say, for example, 5600 Kelvin. I'm using a mouse to write this. I don't have a graphics tablet, but let's just say it was 5500 Kelvin. 5600 Kelvin here. Now the light that's hitting here is 56K. You can tell it's very white. It's neutral. There is no cast at all as far as it's not blue, it's not red, or orange, should I say, or warm. Now here you can see at this part of the image in the bed frame here, or whatever it is at the back, the fireplace or whatever it is, it's got like a blue tinge to it. Now this is telling us that this light here is not the same as this light here. It's just not. Moving on, we've got the quality of the light. So it's very soft, and the way that this is achieved is probably through some sort of diffusion. I mean, it could be a very large light, but it seems more likely that here there is actually like a window of sorts, and they're just pumping light through here. So what they might do, they might have like a 12 by frame, a 12 by 12, say like a grid cloth or something like that they're pumping maybe a really bright light, maybe like a 12K or something, or maybe even just a 5K daylight lamp through this. This is given as very soft. The shadows are or what little of the shadows, they're very soft. There's not really much harsh lighting going on here, and also the position of the light. If you sort of take a look, this is around the center of the frame. If you just use this little thing on YouTube as a mark, this is the center of the frame, so it's almost symmetrical. But if you imagine the room, let's just say this is a box room from the top down, and we've got the window here, and she's sitting up around here, that's like the top of her head. You can see that it's kind of like in line, and it's coming very much from the side. So this is, the light is hitting here, it's not really spreading out. The position of light is important because it works into the symmetry of the shot, which I'll sort of touch on later. It's one of the things that the cinematographer and actually the production designer have done to really make a shot which might seem a little bit boring, a little bit more interesting. On the left of the frame, you might not have even noticed, for if you're perhaps maybe not experienced with cinematography, or you're a novice, that actually there is a light coming in from this way. And the way that I can tell is we've got here, you can kind of see like a kiss of light. It's a very small amount of light here, and here, like on the crevice of the nose here. It's a very small amount. You can also check the sources of lights by looking into the eyes. If it's a shot like this, you can see here you've got some sort of a white, almost like a kino flow sort of style light here, or like a tube light of some sort. And then here you can see like the window from the right, for instance. So it's important that we sort of are able to, well, it's not important, but it's good that we can see that these lights exist, and it will also tell you a little bit about perhaps maybe the distance or the type of light used. For this, I mean, it's not necessarily important. It's so dim that it's just sort of giving us this almost like a kiss of light across some of maybe like the oils in the skin, for instance, and here, and it just sort of brings out a little bit of a gleam or a sheen, and it really actually, it works for the balance of the image. What they probably did here is, because this light coming in here is it's going to be quite a bright light. If, depending on the size of the room, this light would have bounced and then come back this way on a bounce, which would have filled in all of this side of the face. Now, to get this sort of like sheen thing that you can sort of see here, if you had a Kino, let me just change the color. If you had like a Kino here, just sort of pumping light this way, it's not going to do anything if it's trying to compete with this light here, right? The outside, it's not going to do much. So they probably had some negative fill on this side. That's a terrible color for that. It's just huge red. They probably had a lot of negative fill here, which would have really darkened the contrast ratio between this side and the darker side on the left of the frame. Now, the goal here is, if you're a cinematographer and you're trying to get this sort of like light here, is you want to overcompensate with this light so that when you add some negative fill, you're increasing the contrast ratio, which then you can reduce by adding another light like a Kino, which they've done here, to sort of bring back the contrast ratio into a more workable range and something that doesn't look so ugly, and it's you know, a bit more flattering for the talent here. Some final thoughts of the shot. The symmetry and the color palette actually does a lot for this shot. It's a very simple shot, but it's you know, it's a great way of being able to see how some small things have made a shot which could be very boring seem very interesting. So you can see, if I just put on a symmetry line, just for demonstrations purposes, you can see we've got here two major colors. We've got this sort of like, we've got this like white here. Let's take this off. We've got like a lot of white here. She is a white, you know, she's Caucasian. And then you've got the white bed frame here, and then you've got the brown with the browns of the bed. So it's really got two colors. You know, it's a basic shot that has a lot going on in it from a trained eye, and I think it's a good shot to start with if you're learning cinematography, to really understand some of the techniques that a DP has used to be able to get to, you know, this final shot as a finished product. It's also probably worth mentioning that the shot, it's very likely that it was shot on somewhere around a 50mm lens at, say, like 2.8 or something. The hair back here is out of focus, whereas, you know, the sort of tip of the nose and the eyes are in focus. It's not a lot of distance there, and obviously the bed frame is out of focus here, but it's not too tight. You know, it's not like this where you might be on like an 85. It's a bit wider. I'd say it was around a 50 or so, in case you were wondering. Okay, and onto the second shot here. So this is again, this is from the fiction reel, and for this shot I really wanted to show you just on how the position of the light is important and how it's used to tell a story. It may not be the story in this particular film, because I haven't seen it, but it's how I feel when I look at this image, and the lighting is the reason for this. And that's what cinematography is. You know, the job of the cinematographer is to tell the story through lighting and camera choices, whether that's position, the lens choice, height, stuff like that. So the key is obviously it's this orange tungsten-y light here. Now it's lighting the right side of the actress's face. However, it's not coming from here. Okay, and this is important actually. It's not coming from here. It's actually coming more from here. So typically one of the, unwritten responsibilities of a DP is to actually ensure that your talent looks good, especially if it's a female cast, like we've got here. It's why there's a makeup team in a lot of films, especially commercials, where there isn't sort of special effects makeup. It's kind of just for beauty, honestly. And you don't want to be known as the DP who's made someone pretty look bad. That being said, when it comes to the job, you're also there to tell a story with the lights. What this light is doing is it's actually, let me just try and pick like a lighter color here. It's actually softening sorry, it's not softening, it's actually creating these almost like raccoon eyes here. The light's coming down from this angle, and it's really darkening these eye sockets here. It's not very flattering at all, and you can tell it, especially because it's a harsh light, which you can tell because every little dimple on the forehead and a wrinkle like this line here is getting picked up by the light. It's not flattering at all. The story here could be that the woman is perhaps maybe having the worst night of her life, and making her look bad is kind of be a reflection of how she feels, and it's going to help you tell the audience the kind of tone that you as the DP is trying to make you feel. It's just a small one. Other than that, there's some texture here in the background. I don't necessarily feel like it's worth talking about, because as far as texture, the next shot is probably a better example of that. So here's the third shot. Now this one is actually different. So this is from the commercial side of things. In commercials, you very much have this maybe one or somewhere between like 1 to 5 second shot of a certain location, a lot of the times anyway, and something like this may be on screen for only a little bit, so it really needs to have a lot of visual interest. These branches here, and as well as the light here, the sunlight here at the back, and then the color palette of the blue adds a lot of texture to this image overall. So generally, whenever you for the rest of this breakdown of the shot, just think that texture is important, and texture is obviously a really big factor. Texture is obviously something which was considered here. It's why they shot probably here. They could have easily shot somewhere very similar without these branches, but these branches do a lot for the texture and the symmetry of the shot, which again I'll sort of mention later. The shot's very appealing to me for a number of reasons. It's a shot which is a great example of color and composition as well, but you can't just shoot this at any time of the day. Okay, so carefully planning when you shoot something is extremely important in a lot of ways. For example, if you wanted to shoot, I don't know, like a really wide establishing shot, and the film was about an apocalypse that just happened, you wouldn't want to shoot it midday when there's cars on the roads and there's sort of birds around and stuff like that. You want to shoot it very early in the morning, before people are awake, before even really the birds are awake. Unless you CG it all out, which of course is achievable, but it's a different argument really. In this example, the sun setting is actually pivotal to the natural colors and the contrast of the shot. So let's take a look at this. So the shot here, you've got the sun in the setting over here on the left. This is probably it's either the last 15 minutes of the day or so before it gets dark, or too dark to shoot, or alternatively it could be shot on just the tip of the morning, just as the sun is rising, which I actually think is more the case here. I think this was shot in the morning, and the reason for this is because you've got this like natural haze here, this like mist like sitting on the lake. Now if this was during the end of the day, where the sun had risen somewhere up here, and then it's setting over here. A lot of this mist, or all of this mist, would be gone. It just wouldn't be there. It would have evaporated into the sky because of the sunlight and the temperature as it warms up, and it wouldn't be there. So I think this was actually shot during the morning, which is something to think about if you're a DP and you're sort of planning on this. I don't think they would have hazed the entire lake. It just seems kind of impossible in a lot of ways. So what else is the sun doing for us? So the sun's very low. Okay, it's very low, and these tree branches that are running through the image here are kind of like, they're not entirely, but they're almost like black in a way. They've got no light on them whatsoever, because the sun is all the way over here, right? Now, this is important because the branches are not being used as branches. They're just being used for texture, really, and to make the shot a bit more interesting. If it was midday, if the sun was coming down over here, especially if it's overcast, the entire sky comes this one massive softbox, and these branches would all be lit up the same as she's lit up, the same as these branches over here are all lit up. And really, when you want your subject and this vista here to be what you're trying to shoot, it matters. And especially for the color palette, if it was midday, you wouldn't get this sun here. I mean, technically you could color balance for this blue, but I mean, at the expense of what, right? You're losing this the slight orange edge light that you can kind of see, not like it's doing much, but I concur. Obviously the contrasting color palette, you wouldn't get this blue and the sun here. The sun is obviously creating these these tinges of color contrast, and the sheens of orange in the water, which really appeals to me. And they go all the way across. Look, this color, like the different shades of color, you can follow it all the way from the orange as it drifts off into the almost like a gradient into blue, and it's all because of the sun and where it is and the time of day that it's been shot. Final thoughts, really. The shot's very symmetrical in a lot of ways, which is also why I like it. The subject is middle of the frame. You've also got the branches. They don't just run through one side of the frame, they continue into the other side, but also you've kind of got symmetry vertically as well, where you've got a tree branch running on the bottom, you've got one running over the top, you've got these trees here, and then you've got a bit of foliage and a bit of some leaves here. Generally it's a very balanced image as far as composition is concerned, as far as the weight in the shot, where you've got one on one side, you've got it on the other side as well. Again, the branches here are not supposed to be a subject. All they're doing is adding a visual interest and adding some sort of texture to the image, which is really important to consider if you're a DP, especially in the commercial world, or if you're shooting fiction, shooting in interesting locations, and using those to your advantage to make your shots better through composition. So that's it. It's just these three images out of this. Across both videos, there's probably have like 100 shots or something. If you want to check them out, I'll put them I'll put them down here. I'll put them in the description, so you can check them out. The Arri YouTube channel is actually really good for cinematographers looking to improve. Not only do they give you videos like this that you can sort of break down, but they upload some workshops that have taken place that Arri have hosted, things like Cameramage, and other film festivals where like cinematography workshops have been hosted. They upload those. There was one with James Laxton, the DP of Beale Street Moonlight. He did one which is on there, which you can find out. Lots of good stuff. Also their website, they have a video section which you can check out as well. Again, I'll put the links down below. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, and I hope you got a lot out of it, and I hope that I was able to maybe make you think of some ways that you could make your cinematography better, and some of the the choices and sort of the thought process that you should be doing as a DP in order to get the shots that you want.